What is up everybody? Welcome back to Maker Addiction and welcome to my workshop. This video we're going to do a fun little sharpening video which is inspired by the fact that my buddy Robin Lewis over at Robin Lewis, the YouTube channel, just recently did a sharpening video which was a little bit controversial, and two is that our timings worked up really well because I was actually at the Perth Timber and Wood Show last weekend exhibiting exactly this method for TimberCon. Alright, so we're going to need a few things. First is a couple of chisels that need to be sharpened, and maybe a plane iron. Now the other thing you're going to need is a whetstone. Now the reason I really like this version of sharpening as opposed to traditional wheel grinding or hand sharpening on stones is that everything is kept cool and it's relatively quick once it's all set up. So the method that I would use for a chisel, for example, we can see that this one is completely junked, is first things first is I flatten the back, and to do that I just do it on the stone. Now some stones you're not meant to do this on. I like to live life dangerously. I don't know if I'm meant to do it on this one, but I've been doing it for years and I haven't had any issues with this stone going out of flat. From there, tool gets slid into the tool holder and jammed up onto the edges, and that's how we know we're getting 90 degrees. Now repeatability is a huge thing when it comes to sharpening, and that's where this jig comes in. I want this to be at a 30-degree angle, so I set the arrow to be 30 degrees, and then using my up and down of the post, I can get it so there's no air gap, and I know that I'm getting a reliable 30 degrees. And then from there, I just grind. Now the nice thing about the jig is that you can't really mess it up. Only thing you have to be aware of is that. Now the nice thing about it being jigged is that you really can't mess it up that hard. The main concern here is getting even stone wear. So you're constantly moving your tool across the stone until you get a nice hollow grind across the entire face. You just got to periodically check how your bevel is going. Now I just do that by touch, so I just wipe my finger across the back of the blade, and once I feel a burr across the entire length, I know it's sharp, at least to where this stage will get us. Now a few of the benefits of this sharpening method, like I've already stated, is that it's cold, so you don't run the risk of overheating your tool. But the other benefit that not many people think about is because you're drawing the iron into the tool and cold working it, over the life of this tool, the more times you sharpen it, the more work hardening is going to occur to the tips. So you're going to actually extend the life of your tools. It doesn't necessarily add up overnight, but by the time you've kind of ground off maybe a 5 mil or a 1/4 inch of this tool, that steel is going to be getting harder and harder. It's not going to be like a miracle, but slightly longer tool life is something that you can take into mind when you're using this method of sharpening. Alright, so I can feel a burr on the entire edge there, which means we can move on to the next stage. Alright, so step 2 happens on the other post of the machine, and this is the hone. So this is a leather wheel which is charged with a compound. In this case, it's a mixture of autosol and this compound we wax, just because I like to mix it up. But basically, you slide your post in there, and what you're going to do here is bring this ground edge into a highly polished edge. Most people, me included, like to set this tool slightly more aggressive than on this wheel, and that's kind of how you get that micro grind, or micro bevel, I should say. And to do that, I just eyeball it. You can use the same gauge again. So here I'll be probably grinding the top third. On this wheel, like I said, this is charged with a polishing compound already, so I don't have to reapply. But basically it's the same process where you're just polishing that bevel evenly across it until you feel that the burr has disappeared, but you can also see a nice high polish on the edge. Alright, as easy as that, I have a perfectly mirror edge on this chisel, and that is basically good to go. Now then, for maintenance for a chisel like this, you don't have to go through that whole process every time. For me, generally, I will actually just come and hit it on the leather wheel between sharpenings, probably 4 to 5 times before it feels like it would benefit from hitting that stone again. So really, all I'm doing is retouching up that highly polished face on the wheel between uses. Now, how do you know it's sharp? Well, the old timer that taught me how to sharpen tools always said, get your thumbnail and very lightly just drag it across that blade. If you feel any catches, you know it's not sharp. And in this method, well, that is dead sharp. And then for those that think that being able to shave with it is important, well, it will do that too. Now then, the exact same method applies for things like plane irons and obviously wider and narrower chisels. So that's the exact same process. I don't really need to show it here, but the other benefit that I love with this machine is having the ability to sharpen my own knives. Now this is my rigger's knife and I like to keep this sharp because, well, it's for cutting rope and everything that kind of requires a pretty durable edge. So this is a knife jig which you just clamp your knife into, and to set that, you just basically want to keep this edge kind of parallel to the straightest section of the knife. Now all knives shapes are different, but that's kind of the idea with it. And with that, you also just set your angle just like before. So for a knife of this style, I want it to be 20 degrees on, and I can see it just needs to be just a hair lower. That will do. Now then, from there, it's just a matter of lightly dragging the knife across the surface with a slight rotation to get the tip, and doing so until you start to feel a burr on that side. Then you just flip it over and do the exact same on the other side. Where most people go wrong is that they lift the jig and that changes the bevel angle. So really what you're wanting to do is have a positive connection down there without it breaking away, and just twist the knife to get to the tip. And there we go. That is a razor sharp knife. All right, so there it is. That's my sharpening method. It does rely on a kind of pricey machine, but you know, these are coming down in cost. So for example, the Sherwood unit, which I was demoing last weekend, was only $300 at the wood show. So $300 for a unit like this that can do a lot of different tools is money well spent. Now I've got links in the description to where you could maybe get some of these. You know, I recommend the Sherwood, the Triton is pretty good as well as obviously the Tormek, which is a lot more expensive, however. But all of the units that I link down in the description below are ones that I've tried and know do a really good job. Now, I would love to hear about your sharpening methods and maybe open up a bit of dialogue down below in the comments. So leave a comment, let us know what you use for sharpening and why, and whether or not you like it or dislike it. Now, that is gonna do it for this video. Like always, a special thanks to all of my Patreons. You guys are what really help keep this channel afloat. And for all of my new viewers, make sure you click that subscribe button and check that bell icon so you get notifications of all new videos. The exciting news is we are bringing back the weekly videos. All right guys, thanks for watching. See you next time.